Hi, this is Paul with the Oaken Knight. Today we're going to continue our playthrough of Rally Round the Flag Corps Command by Lost Battalion Games. And we're going to be doing the first day evening turn, so that would be the third turn of the game. And so we're going to pick up the action at the beginning of that turn and see where it leads us. The current situation is basically the Union being pushed back about as far as it can go without being in danger of just flat losing the game at the end of day one. They're bucked up against Cemetery Ridge, the Angle, the Culp's Hill. They've got damaged units. They've had a hard day of it. They've had some close calls as far as opportunities to win different battles. Several of them they came really close to winning, but by the fall of the die, they came just short time and time again. So with that, let's go ahead and start play and see what happens. For the final turn of day one, we have to set up the deck for the Union. 12th Corps is going to be the top card on the deck for turn 3. At this point, the Union is always in an extreme state, and they absolutely need this Corps to come in fast, so we have to put it on top. And the 3rd Corps gets mixed in. There is a special scenario rule that's actually part of the base game. If at the end of turn 3, any or all of these corps have not actually marched on the map, then they march on the map. So so at the end of the third day, we are going to have the 12th Corps, the 3rd Corps on the map. So we got a whole bunch of guys coming. We also have the Night March Moves Only. This is the card that's going to stop the attacks on the 3rd turn. Now this is going to get shuffled in, and we have a pretty good sized pile of cards on the Union side still yet to be played, so I don't expect this card to come out. However, it's a whole different story for the Confederates, who also have this same card, either one of which will stop the attacks on the 3rd turn. So let me go ahead and seed the deck and get it set up, and then we'll go through the Confederates. For the South, we only have one card coming into the deck, and that is the Night March Moves Only. Again, once this card is played, darkness has fallen, and the only thing possible is movement from March Circle to March Circle along the pikes. No more attacks and no more area movement. So a lot is going to depend on where this card is in the Confederate deck. We have no idea. We won't know until we draw. Now, I did change the scenario a bit. Longstreet was supposed to come in this turn. I delay his entry to the beginning of day 2 in the morning. So Longstreet is getting pushed out until day 2. I don't believe his troops were in the immediate area quite this early. Okay, we have the start of the evening turn for July 1st. The decks are seeded. Confederate is always the first player, so why don't we go ahead and give this a try and see what happens. The South only has 3 cards in their hands. They are holding no events. Robert E. Lee is commanding. He draws 4, so let us draw 4. For suspense, I will put him here, and the question is one of these the Night Moves card, because that would stop all the attacking right here. There's 1. No go. 2. Well, what do you know? Well, what do you know? There it be. Guys, I didn't do any funny business here. This was just a straight shuffle. There's no further attacking this day. The Union is hanging on to by their fingernails onto all this beautiful real estate. Okay, that's the game we have. So by the hair of their chinny chin chins, the Union is going to hang on to the key positions on Cemetery Hill, on Culp's Hill, on the Angle. I guess it just was impracticable to continue this assault. Let me go ahead and see what we're going to do with this. You know, this is going to be pretty easy because the South is basically frozen in place. They have nobody in March column, no reinforcements coming on this turn. So they really have nothing to do. They can't attack, no ranged artillery, nothing. So they're just going to draw cards and try to bring this to an end as quickly as they can. So that's it for the Confederates. They're done. For the North, do they have any events? They have no events other than the heroic charge they've been hanging on to. All right, so They need to dump and draw cards, and let's see what they do. We're gonna dump three and draw three for with Reynolds still in charge. The cards we're getting rid of are not of much value. They're for formations that are not going to be coming on the map for a while. They're all about the same, nice defense cards, but right now that's not what we need. We want to have cores showing up, so they were going to march on, although they will anyway. So this is no longer a critical thing for them, but we do. Let's see, three cards. Let's take care of that, and we know one of them. We know exactly what one of them is going to be, and it's an incredibly important card. All right. We have the 12th Corps arriving. They're arriving up over here on the Baltimore Pike, and let me go ahead and get them set up, and we'll see what we do. Hang on. The Union has a similar problem in that there is nobody on the Pike for road movement except for the 12th Corps. So we're going to go ahead, and it doesn't matter who we pick to activate, they're not going to be able to do anything. We're going to go down to phase 5, which will allow us to play a command card. Here's our command card. All those troops are actually still with the 12th Corps commander, and they're going to get to do the road movement all together, and they will get to deploy, which is a really important thing right now. So let's see what we can do. All right, we had the 12th Corps begin in the Baltimore Pike March Circle for entering. The leader went 1, 2. He had March 7, so he went 1, 2, and then deployed. He deployed into the angle with his smaller division with the 12th Corps artillery, and he deployed on Cemetery Hill with his larger division. He's hanging back, and he is helping both those groups. So we have a mixed group here at the angle. We have a very mixed group on Cemetery Hill, and we have the 11th Corps on Culp's Hill. Actually, this game, I've always seen them get kind of blown to pieces, but in this game, except they were hit once, and they managed to pull back and not get hit a second time. They're not in too bad a shape. All right, I'm trying to think, I don't think there's any reason at this point that the two players wouldn't agree that this turn can end. So by mutual agreement, turns can end. By the scenario rules, the 3rd Corps march on and deploy. So let's go ahead and take care of that business. All right, we had a few things happen. We had the 3rd Corps arrive at the Emmitsburg Road, and he went 1, 2 and deployed all into the wheat field. So the entire 3rd Corps is now sitting in the wheat field. So it's in a great position to support both the angle as well. It's in a great position to support the angle and threaten over here at the copse of trees should that thin out at all, and maybe not even. They're actually about even in strength at the moment. The 2nd Corps actually doesn't come in till next turn, so Hancock is still patiently waiting over here for 2nd Corps to arrive. And one other note, I had some artillery. I had an artillery piece for 3rd Corps, as well as Johnson's division and the remainder of the 2nd Corps artillery all showed up over at the Chambersburg Pike. And with Lee's movement, he would easily be able to get them down the column and deployed at least through Gettysburg. So just to summarize where we are with after 3 turns, we've gotten through the first day of the battle. At this point, we have the entire 2nd and 3rd Corps on the map, and the Confederate 1st Corps is going to begin to arrive with the new day. At this point, if I had to say a winner for day 1, well, it's hard to say that the Union didn't win this just because they hung on to everything. They hung on to Culp's Hill. They hung on to Cemetery Hill. They're good down the line. It's actually fairly solid. So that mess that we saw happening out there throughout day 1, with the exception of one attack by the Confederates that they got tossed back on Seminary Ridge. Remember, I think the initial attack was repulsed, and then a second attack came in and really did a job. But the Union is going to be able to recover from this, I think. All right, now I have added one last activity for the night turn. Well, it's not a night turn. I call it a night interface. Because the strength points are so small in number, you have entire divisions with 2 points, some with three, a few with four, but most of them are like in the three range, maybe the four range, with lots of twos, especially on the Union side. The entire Second Corps is 2-point units. I think it's important to not let heavy casualties do too much. I mean, we could have had even worse. So what I am going to do is a third of the infantry points can come back at the end of the day. That would be rounded down. Half of the artillery points that are units that are eliminated get to come back rounded down. No cavalry comes back. So we took a lot of heavy casualties with the Union cavalry. None of that comes back. But the infantry and, well, we only lost one artillery piece also, so that's not coming back. But let me see what we can do with the infantry. Confederates get the same deal. There's some guidelines that I put in place, and I think I covered this in my rules video. But basically, you can't make units fresh unless they are 2-point units. The units that have taken the most hits get a point back first. Then you can start going down to others. You can't bring guys back to full strength except for 2-point units, and you can't bring any dead guys back on the board until everything else has been exhausted. So let me take a look at what we can do and see how that turns out here. For the Confederacy, it's pretty easy. You can see there are only three casualty points assigned to Confederate infantry. And we have 2 on this Heath unit. He was one of the 2 units, that being the other, Pender being the other, that had the failed attack early on. And so Heath is going to get back one of those 2 points. So let's go ahead and erase that off. They reorganized, they re-ested, they found new sergeants to take over. The guys, some of the guys that had straggled away after the battle that roughed them up have come back. They got their organization back intact, and they're a little bit stronger than they were. Now for the Union, I see a First Corps with a hit. There's no 11th Corps guys with hits. So we only have 1 point of hits for the Union on the map. We have taken more than that. We do have guys in the dead pile. So we've taken a total of 5 hits. As I said, a third come back rounded down, so there's only 1 point coming back. And so we have a choice between bringing back either the 2nd Division of the 1st Corps or the 11th Corps unit back in as a 1-point unit. Well, I think that's an easy choice. We're going to bring in the I Corps unit. And in this case, they're going to go with their corps commander. So, and their corps commander is actually in the field. Reynolds is in the field at Cemetery Hill. So this unit will recover. The 2nd Division will recover 1 point. He's recovered 1 point, and he's going to be on top of Cemetery Hill with all the others. So the Union position maybe gets slightly stronger. The Confederates heal some of the damage to Henry Heath. That is day 1 at Gettysburg. So what happened here in terms of the situation at the end of the first day? Well, if you go simply by victory points, counting up the March Circle victory points, Confederates have 19, the Union have 15. And if you look at the definition of the first day scenario in the scenario book, anything less than a 5-point victory is considered a draw. So if you go simply by what they say in the book, this battle was a draw. However, I think you'd be hard-pressed to convince any Union commander who got pushed back so roughly all day long only to survive it and to maintain control of all the key objectives. You'd be hard-pressed to convince that commander that this was a draw. I think they would be huzzahing from hilltop to the next that they had held the high ground. So suffice it to say that General Trimble is an unhappy camper, and he's going to storm off to Lee's headquarters about Dick Ewell as far as what he did in declaring that it was impractical to continue the attack to the Cemetery Hill and over to Culp's Hill. But in another sense, what we saw was a demonstration of history. because it was something pretty close to this that what actually happened. The Southerners, Ewell's men were marching all morning to get to the battlefield. They fought hard all afternoon, and in 90 to plus degree weather, with their woolen uniforms on, probably didn't have a bite to eat since breakfast. Who knows how much water they had left in their canteens. And by, say, 6 in the afternoon, they were exhausted. And their commanding general decided that they simply could not continue the attack up the hills that were in front of them. It's hard to say what the truth is in that, but it is what happened. And so what happened in our game map was something kind of similar to that. The South had an energetic attack. They pushed Buford back all the way up the Chambersburg Pike. They met the Union First Corps in the vicinity of the Lutheran Seminary. The First Corps deployed to Oak Ridge, Seminary Ridge, and along the Lutheran Seminary. The initial attacks were made and repulsed by the Union. Follow-on attacks was more than they could handle. Now, if we look at this from a sheer game point of view, the Confederates won all but one engagement. However, I think at least 3 of them they won by 1 point. One pip of the die, including one where all the modifiers were dead even going in. So whoever was going to roll best would win. So in terms of saying this was a lucky turn of events for the Union, it's like, well, yeah, kind of, but also kind of, you could say they were a bit unlucky during the combat resolutions. So it's just the ebb and flow of our simulated combat. And who's to say whether it was reasonable or unreasonable, especially since it's what actually happened. So in that view, I'd say this play test of the game for the 3 turns of the first day has been quite successful. I'm happy with it. Now, I think there are a few things that I need to pay attention to refine, and some new things I could add. But as of right now, I would say the game is playable, the game is fun, and certainly it's exciting. I mean, I almost died when I turned over that card and it was the night card. So our games create memorable events for us, and I think if you had a friend over the tabletop and something like that were to happen, I think that would be a game that you would remember for a good long while. And after all, I'm not sure what else we hope to get out of this hobby other than some fun, some good relationships with good friends, and memorable events such as that happening in front of us on our tabletops. So with that, I'd like to say thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of it. For now, that's it. This is Paul, the Oaken Knight, wishing y'all a happy evening.